Welcome back. I am Nurbek Savitahunov. You're watching news from Kazakhstan, and these are the headlines. Ministry of Internal Affairs helicopter crashes during a training flight in Astana. 4 crew members are reported dead. President Nazarbayev promises to educate Kyrgyzstan students and provide grains to the country, but also instructs the brotherly people to work on their own during his first state visit to Kyrgyzstan. Almost $100 for a digital receiver. KplusTV Radio launches sale of special equipment for on-air and satellite broadcasting. Four people died in a helicopter crash on Wednesday, August 22nd, near Astana. The crew of Mi-17 was performing a training flight. Reasons for the crash are being investigated. There are several leads at the moment, however the Air Force is denying information on a possible explosion in the air. According to Prosecutor General's office, upon impact, the helicopter broke into pieces and caught fire. All flights of this type of vehicle were discontinued for the time being. Our next report is from the site of the emergency.
The crash site of Mi-17 helicopter is about 300 meters away from the military airport. The area is now sealed off, surrounded by fire trucks and equipment. No one is allowed to come close. Moreover, the military police do not recommend even to stop on part of the road next to the crashed aircraft. The helicopter with 4 people on board went down at 8 a.m. and by afternoon the military prosecutor's office released the names of the victims: Captain Talgat Dasanov, 2nd Lieutenant Yirkin Mamabet Niyazov, Janbota Kasimov, and 2nd Lieutenant Akılbek Musin. The latter is the officer from the Presidential Security Detail. In 2009, he accompanied Nursultan Nazarbayev and Prime Minister Karim Masimov as part of the delegation to Ashgabat. The military prosecutor's office did not reveal details about Akılbek Musin's serves, only confirming the launch of a major investigation. Akmola Military Prosecutor's Office has started a criminal case to investigate this accident, which could have been caused by the violation of aviation regulations and flight preparation rules. The investigation is currently underway. 1 hour after the media briefing in the Military Prosecutor's Office, representatives of the Defense Ministry gathered reporters as well. Air Force Commander-in-Chief Alexander Sorokin expressed his condolences to the families of the victims. As he explained, the crash happened during a planned flight while the aircraft was produced in 2007 and piloted by experienced crew. The commander had about a total of 700 flight hours. As of now, we have over 5 versions regarding the crash. The flight recorder has been recovered and is being decoded. The Lieutenant General stated that an interagency investigation commission has been established that also includes representatives of the National Security Committee and other agencies. The officer promised to release initial results in about 10 days.
The remains of one more person may be inside a burnt-down house near Almaty, where 11 bodies were found a week ago, says the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The massacre took place in the forest of Ile-Alatau National Park. Among those killed were a huntsman and his wife. The identities of almost half the victims have not yet been established.
The investigation admits the possibility of finding the remains of another victim in the hunter's burned-down house. This information can be either confirmed or denied by forensic medical examination. The Interior Ministry spokesperson has finally commented on the rumors regarding the possible arrest of Birgey Rıskaliyev, the former head of Atarau region. On Tuesday, some media outlets reported about the arrest of the official in Atarau airport on his way to London. According to some sources, none of which were disclosed, the former governor is suspected of embezzling budget funds. For several days, the authorities kept silent, neither confirming nor denying the information. Yesterday, the Interior Ministry spokesman made an official statement while pressed on the matter by reporters. Law enforcement agencies did not arrest representatives of local authorities. Did they not arrest them, or you just have no information regarding the issue? We don't have any information on the matter.
Around 70% of the police force has been recertified by the Central Commission. Almost 200 Interior Ministry staff was recommended for dismissal, while more than 100 law enforcement officers were advised to look for other jobs.
The attestation of personnel of the Ministry of Emergency Situations is likely to cause a number of new dismissals. After the second stage of the performance evaluation, about a dozen of staff members will likely lose their jobs. The Central Committee tested 274 employees of the ministry, including its senior officials. The committee reported its results after conducting interviews and checking the physical state of the personnel.
Рекомендуется к понижению в должности 16 сотрудников.
The committee recommended 16 employees for demotion. It found that 15 employees are not qualified for their holding positions and thus recommended them for transfer to other departments. 10 people were recommended for dismissal. The committee has not reached the decision on 14 employees, and the hearing of their cases are postponed until the next meeting.
President Nursultan Nazarbayev is in neighboring Kyrgyzstan. For the first time in 20 years of independence, the trip was classified as a state visit. The Kazakh delegation, including head of Samruk Kazanov Fund, Omirzak Shukeyev, ministers and governor of Zhambul region, was personally greeted with honors by Kyrgyz President Almazbek Atambayev. According to protocol, the presidents headed to Atambayev's residence in Al-Archa, where they were met by the guards of honor.
The two leaders first discussed food security issues and later took part in the third meeting of the Supreme Interstate Council of Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. In the course of negotiations, the presidents decided to increase the bilateral trade to $1 billion a year. Kazakhstan has promised to provide Kyrgyzstan with 200,000 tons of grain on a deferred payment terms and to allocate educational grants for Kyrgyz students in universities of Kazakhstan. President Nazarbayev advised the people of Kyrgyzstan to work harder instead of hoping for foreign aid. He also called for Kyrgyzstan to expedite the process of entering the customs union. Later in the afternoon, Nazarbayev met with the Prime Minister of Kyrgyzstan, Omurbek Babanov, who is currently facing the calls to resign by the Kyrgyzstan parliament. We've reached agreements on almost all issues with the truly fraternal support of Nursultan Nazarbayev, the president of Kazakhstan. The majority of issues were solved with a true brotherly generosity. The country must operate based on its own resources. It is impossible to develop the state at the expense of government credits. Therefore, as a senior, I would like to advise you to work harder. I tell my people the same. Everyone needs to understand that nothing will change unless we all work hard. Of course, the employment opportunities should be provided in order to do that.
In other news, Kazakhstan citizen Tatyana Romanova was fined $15 for her campaign at the Khamovniki court in Moscow in support of punk rock band Pussy Riot. On the day of the band's sentencing, Romanova climbed the fence of the Turkish embassy and, according to police, shouted slogans in defense of the three musicians. The activist was detained and fined on Wednesday.
This delicate young lady standing on top of the fence at the Turkish embassy in Moscow is Tatyana Romanova, citizen of Kazakhstan. Whatever inspired her to go for such a courageous move, and why did police so desperately try to stop her? So many people gathered to support the girls, and then it seemed like they were going to disperse. I knew I had to do something about it, and this pillar caught my attention. Everything else just happened very fast. Romanova refers to the feminist band Pussy Riot, 3 members of which were sentenced to 2 years in prison after performing a punk prayer, Mother of God chased Putin away in Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Savior. The incident with Tatyana treading dangerously close to a diplomatic scandal occurred during a street action in support of the band right outside the courthouse. Now Tatyana needs support herself, since what she did is illegal. The forwarded charges of insubordination to the Russian police can lead to a fine or a maximum of 15 days in jail. Tatyana Romanova resides in Moscow for the last 4 years and became an opposition activist 4 months ago. She took part in Occupy By, Barrikadne and Support Pussy Riot actions, among others, which even led to her losing her job. Despite all the hardships, Tatyana says she would go through everything again without hesitation. This is my home. I am Russian and my parents are Russian citizens. I want to live in a decent country. I see the current situation here and I don't like it. I know the oppression in Kazakhstan is a lot worse and I'm not going back there. I believe that I'm doing everything right. I can't believe how unjust is the Pussy Riot trial when the first question asked by the judge was whether they are believers or not. All of this is taking place in an Orthodox country. 3 hours later, the judges ruled to fine Tatyana $15.
Civil activist Vadim Kuramshin is facing 14 years in prison. Arguments in the criminal case against the accused concluded on Wednesday in Taraz.
The prosecutor asked to sentence Kuramshin to 14 years in prison with confiscation of property. On Thursday, the judge will discuss the case with the jury. The date of the court's verdict announcement is not yet known. Vadim Kuramshin is charged with extorting money from Korday District Assistant DA Mukhtar Udyrbayev. Currently, the jury is preparing the list of questions which they will be allowed to address during the trial. Since in Kazakhstan court, the jury and the judge will be jointly meeting in the jury room, they have to compile a questionnaire based on which they will gather in the jury room to make a final decision on this case.
Prisoners' relatives posted information on the internet about another incident in an Atarao jail. 3 inmates announced a hunger strike and sewed their mouths shut in protest. Close ones confirmed the information with frightening photographs, while the prison's leadership avoided giving publicity to the incident for several days.
Convicts Aymuratov, Shamshidenov and Yurgaliyev announced a hunger strike due to their disagreement with a decision of the Interregional Specialized Court. However, on August 20th, they stopped the hunger strike after talking to the Department of Corrections chief and myself. In the evening, they had a meal. There is no evidence of 10 more people planning to support them by inflicting self-injuries. According to the leadership of the detention center, it was the verdict of the Interregional Specialized Criminal Court that caused the inmates to protest. On June 4th, 5 defendants were sentenced to various terms of up to 13 years for currency counterfeiting and organizing a criminal group. Yet why would the inmates stitch their mouths 3 months after the verdict is still not clear.
International human rights activists are concerned about the spread of HIV among Kazakhstan's prisoners. They blame unobstructed access to drugs in these institutions. However, official doctors and prison leadership ask not to dramatize the situation. They assure that the growth rate of this dangerous infection has slowed down in the penitentiary system. Who is to blame and what needs to be done? These were the questions discussed by both parties at a specially convened conference in Astana.
As per official statistics, over 1,500 prisoners in Kazakhstan have HIV. 24 cases were registered within the country's penitentiary system in the last 6 months alone. Despite this, the chief sanitary doctor of Kazakhstan, Jandarbek Bekshin, remains optimistic. We've managed to stabilize the infection spread and witness a downward trend. In 2011, the AIDS infection rate dropped by 9.9%. Saule Mektepbayeva, a representative of an international organization for prisoners' rights protection, believes that to resolve the problem, it is first necessary to admit it exists at all. Most often, it is drug users who get infected with HIV in prisons. Mektepbayeva says that since it is impossible to make the penitentiary system completely drug-free, then at least the damage should be minimized. This is just an inability to admit that the drug problem exists in prisons. It is a very complex psychological problem, and for the agency that is responsible for prisons, it is very difficult to come to this realization. The penitentiary system management looks surprised when hearing about prison-wide outbreaks. Janat Kishubayev says that such cases are extremely rare and HIV has been brought to prisons from the outside world anyway. Apparently, that is where the issue should be dealt first. Yes, sometimes we have cases when drugs get inside prisons, but we try to prevent this and identify such cases. But this is not an epidemic. All I'm saying is that we have isolated cases when people get infected inside prisons. Most times, though, they come here already infected. The situation is further complicated by the transitional period currently experienced by the penitentiary healthcare system. This is gradually transferred to the health ministry. In all the confusion due to purchase of equipment and reshuffling of personnel, many issues have been ignored. Officials promise normal conditions after the completion of transfer.
Bostanlık Court in Almaty held the first hearing over the petition of the National Bank to its borrower, Andrei Kravts. The hearing lasted a mere several minutes. During this time, the defendants voiced the petition to involve the notary in the case. In response, the plaintiff requested to dismiss media coverage. At that very moment, the judge adjourned the session, promising to continue the hearing on September 3rd.
I'm against the presence of mass media in the courtroom, since the bank secrecy and commercial secrets will be declassified during the trial. We've already resolved this issue. It is too late to change your position, especially now, when the court already admitted mass media in the courtroom. After such an unusually short court session, the defendants nevertheless shared with reporters the details of the claim. In March 2007, Andrei Kravets took a $376,000 loan to purchase an apartment for his son and pledged a 4-room apartment as collateral. At the time of the completion of the loan contract, the estimated price of the apartment was more than $670,000 and covered all of his loan obligations to the bank. According to the defendant, he was making regular loan payments for 4 years. However, due to the financial crisis, the price of the collateral was cut in half, which prompted the People's Bank to ask for the inclusion of the purchased apartment as additional collateral to secure the loan, although this clause was not mentioned in the loan agreement. Sulubike Zhaksylykova, who recently launched a new association, Provide Housing for People, to defend the rights of mortgage holders, acted as the attorney of the loan borrower. According to her, the attendance of the notary in the next court hearing could greatly help the case. We didn't expect the court to accept our motion, but it did. The notary will attend the next hearing and he will confirm that ownership rights for the purchased apartment were transferred to his son under the deed of gift, and at that time the apartment was neither under arrest nor set as a collateral. It can't be considered fraud. It was Andrei Kravets' right to do so.
The Bar of Lawyers of South Kazakhstan region intends to provide legal services and consultations to entrepreneurs of the burnt-down Shymkent market, Bigzhan, free of charge. Lawyers promise to provide assistance not only in resolving legal issues, but also plan to manage the course of the investigation over the cause of the fire at the market and the search for the guilty party.
We will soon find out whether it was an arson, a result of technical flaws, or the fault of the market owners who were improperly renting these premises out. We're ready to involve 5, 10 or even 100 lawyers to give legal advice to everyone whose property was damaged in fire. Lawyers say it won't be easy to estimate individual damage caused by fire. Most of traders had no papers for their burned goods. Some even worked without any contracts. Unsurprisingly, only 1,300 people out of nearly 7,000 victims have applied to the police so far. To recap, a large fire broke out on the night of August 4th in the large Shymkent market, Bigzhan. A 30-year-old citizen of Kyrgyzstan died in the flames, with a pregnant woman taken to a nearby hospital with burns after trying to save her goods. According to the preliminary investigators, the fire was caused by arson.
Kazakh NGOs disagree with a statement of the leader of National Communist Vladislav Kosarev on complete prohibition of NGO activities financed from abroad. NGO representatives intended to express their views to Mr. Kosarev personally during the 6th discussion meeting. However, the Member of Parliament failed to arrive, referring to a busy schedule.
If this is just an individual opinion of an MP, we must respond to it, but it could also be a general trend in Russia. Readers know that the authorities have introduced a law stepping up regulations for non-government organizations receiving foreign grants. Does Kazakhstan need such a law? On July 18th, Communist MP Vladislav Kosarev said that similar NGOs are not needed in Kazakhstan at all. The opinion stirred quite an outrage among organizations' representatives. In a phone interview, Kosarev pointed out that his statement is just a personal opinion and he was not planning to introduce any actual bills or proposals to the parliament. I still believe that since we can have political parties financed from abroad, we shouldn't have NGOs with foreign financing. Once again, I think non-government organizations with foreign funding are not needed in our country.
Digital TV receivers are now on sale in Kazakhstan. Their cost is anywhere between $87 to $93. As reported on Wednesday by Kaz Teleradio, the process of switching from analog to digital broadcasting is carried as planned. The new system is already being tested in 5 cities. A special webpage was launched where Kazakh channels may be viewed online from abroad, while by July of 2015, Kazakhstan will completely stop using the analog system. Meanwhile, the National Association of Television and Radio Broadcasters is skeptical, claiming that the switch to digital is made on purpose to eliminate unwanted media.
The monopolist of the local TV market says that Kazakhstan citizens will be enjoying new digital TV by the year 2015. There will be more channels available, up to 15 in the regions and up to 30 in Almaty and Astana. More importantly, the quality will improve dramatically. Kastela Radio Management is certain that by 2015 the network will cover 95% of all country viewers. We've signed a memorandum and low-income families will be connected to Atau TV at the expense of regional budgets. The memorandum in question is already in force in East Kazakhstan, Pavlodar, Karaganda and Mangistau regions, with over 1,000 families already receiving the signal of the national system Atau TV. A few years ago, Kazakh radio representatives said that just a technical transition to a new broadcasting format was not enough. The new system required new frequencies, legislation and special TV adapters for the audience. The law on television and radio broadcasting has been passed recently, and now the government will choose what the population should watch. TV channels will not need to pay for the inclusion in the broadcasting package for now, representatives of Kazakh radio say. However, new rates will be announced in 2016. We have a digital transmitter for 14 channels with identical time slots, so there is no difference whether the channel is local or countrywide. Thus, the rates will be uniform for all channels and transmitters. Why do officials select channels and not media representatives? Why no one but the national operator is involved in project implementation? If the national operator is a monopoly, then why isn't the rate policy controlled by the Anti-Monopoly Committee? Experts have many unanswered questions like these. The National Association of Television and Radio Broadcasters is concerned that the audience is not given the benefit of a choice, with small regional stations and independent TV companies also at risk. After all, it becomes really easy to deny any media access to a uniform package, referring to technical difficulties. Anti-monopoly legislation is not very well developed in Kazakhstan. Currently, monopolists have many ways of avoiding responsibility, especially when they are protected by the state bodies. The new system is now being tested in 5 cities and towns: Astana, Almaty, Karaganda, Zhezkazgan and Zhanaozen. Observers are certain that the appearance of that latter town on the list is definitely not a coincidence, since the authorities have long been frustrated by local residents installing private satellite dishes which allow them to receive hundreds of channels, including K+. With the new law on television and radio broadcasting in force, it will be much easier to control the airwaves. Satellite dishes are already being dismantled in Zhanaozen, supposedly due to their non-authentic look. But soon new dishes will appear to give people the much talked about digital TV.
A certificate of accreditation was revoked from the DMEO Association of Producers and Artists. The organization collects funds for the use of copyrights and is headed by a well-known singer and producer Kaderali Bolmanov.
On Wednesday, the Justice Ministry reported that the number of violations in the area of intellectual property has increased by 34% compared to 2011. The DMEO Union is also among violators of intellectual property rights. Many Kazakhstan performers, such as Bibigul Tuligenova, Eskendir Hasangaliyev, as well as bands Muz Art, Alitao, and Dosmo Kasan, work with the organization. After the probe of the Intellectual Rights Committee, DMEO lost its accreditation certificate, which allowed it to collect royalties for the use of copyrighted products without contracts with copyright holders. According to the Justice Ministry, the company committed a number of serious violations. The DMEO Association of Producers and Artists violated the law on intellectual property by not paying royalties to copyright holders. It did not even report to them about the amount of collected royalties, as well as the share of copyright holders in the collected funds.
Finally, on Wednesday, August 22nd, under the support of the United Nations, Kazakhstan marked its first International Day of Humanitarian Aid and Workers Killed on Duty. 3 years ago, the General Assembly decided to establish this day on August 19th in honor of the anniversary of the terrorist act in Baghdad in 2003 that killed 22 United Nations staff who were providing humanitarian aid.
Stephen Toll, the director of the UN headquarters in Almaty, defined Kazakhstan as the leader in Central Asia in providing humanitarian aid. Since 2006, the government of Kazakhstan allocated over $60 million as foreign relief to Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Japan and others. Moreover, Kazakhstan has supported the activities of large institutions, including the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the UN agencies, in the amount of $500,000 in 2011.
Already, Kazakhstan, among the Central Asian countries, is the leading humanitarian donor. It's given, we estimate, over $60 million in humanitarian assistance in the last 6 or 7 years. And together with the European Union, Russia, the United States, Kazakhstan is one of the leading donors of humanitarian assistance in Central Asia to other Central Asian countries. So all of this tendency is something that in the United Nations we're working closely with the government to try to encourage and support.
The event also featured a concert and a display of life rescue activities organized in an Almaty park. Librarian Galina Chernysheва says the concept of humanitarian assistance should be promoted in Kazakhstan and calls everyone involved in humanitarian field the true heroes of our time. It's good that children are present here today, and when they grow up, they might also organize such charity events, have people come and share their knowledge, and it doesn't have to be the UN. Instead, each one of us should have the heart for it.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.